All right, so India's e-commerce space, it's basically a war zone between giants, right? But today, we're going to look at a new challenger, one that's trying to completely rewrite the rulebook. Let's talk about halfpay.com. So just imagine this for a second. What if every single time you saw something on sale, it always meant at least 50% off? Seriously, no more guessing, no more lame 10% or 20% discounts, just a guaranteed half off every single time. Well, that's the wild promise at the very core of the company we're diving into.
But, to really get how they're pulling this off, we've got to talk about the unique situation they're in. We're talking about India's big retail puzzle.
So check this out. It's kind of crazy, but traditional offline shopping is still king in India. I mean, you hear all this buzz about e-commerce, but a whopping 90% of all sales, yeah, 90%, still happen in your local neighborhood stores. And that number, it's super important, so keep it in mind. Okay, so here's the fundamental problem, right? On one side, you've got this massive, and I mean massive, middle class in India. Hundreds of millions of families who are super smart about their money and are always looking for a good deal. Then, on the other side, you have that huge 90% offline market. All these local shops just packed with stuff. The real challenge has always been, how do you connect these two groups?
So, how do you solve that? Well, one company thinks they've cracked the code, and their big idea? It's simple, but it's also pretty wild. It all starts with the 50% off promise. And this is the absolute heart of what halfp.com is all about. It's not some maybe or a suggestion. It's a stone-cold guarantee. Every single item on their platform is at least 50% off. And some stuff, it goes all the way up to a mind-blowing 90% off. And get this, we're talking brand new, fresh out of the box products, not secondhand stuff. And it's not just one type of product either. The variety here is huge. We're not just talking about old electronics they're trying to get rid of. No, this covers pretty much everything. Physical items, digital stuff like vouchers, even personal services and health checkups. They're really trying to build the ultimate one-stop shop for serious deals. So by doing this, by having these insane consistent discounts on, well, everything, they're trying to become what they call India's discount heaven. And think about it. For a family that's trying to make every single rupee count, this isn't just another shopping app. It's basically a gold mine. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. How on earth is this possible, right? How can any company afford to just give away stuff at 50 to 90% off? Well, that's where we get to their secret sauce. It's all about their hyper-local model. So instead of spending a fortune building these massive centralized warehouses like the big guys, Halfway's approach is totally different. They just partner up with the local stores and wholesalers that are already there, in your city. It's less like one giant faraway warehouse and more like a huge network of local storerooms all ready to deliver. And this is the absolute game changer in their strategy. See, the big e-commerce players are basically trying to crush that 90% offline market. They compete with them. Halfpay, they do the exact opposite. They work with them. They turn those local shops into their partners, giving them a whole new way to find customers. So what does that look like for you, the customer? It's simple. You tap buy on the app, your order instantly goes to the closest partner store that has what you want. They pack it up and boom, it's on your doorstep in like 30 to 60 minutes. So it's not just ridiculously cheap, it's also ridiculously fast. And here's the kicker. Because they don't have to pay for those giant warehouses and all the logistics that go with them, their operating costs are projected to be just 2% of their total revenue. I mean, 2%. That's practically nothing compared to their competitors. And that is how they can afford those crazy 50 to 90% discounts. It's built right into the model. But, for them, it's not just about being a place to get cheap stuff. Their ambitions are way, way bigger than that. They're playing a much longer game. And you can see just how big they're thinking when you look at their financial goals. I mean, they're shooting for 500 crores in revenue in the first year. Then they want to jump to 2,000 crores in year 2 and then rocket all the way up to 4,000 crores by year 3. We're not talking about a small startup here. They're planning to become a massive player and they're planning to do it fast. So where is all that growth going to come from? Well, this part's really smart. They're focusing hard on India's Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. These are the smaller, up-and-coming cities that are actually driving almost 60% of all the new e-commerce growth in the country. This is where the next 100 million online shoppers are. And all of this leads back to their bigger vision for the company. They actually say what they're building is not just a business, it's a movement. Okay, sounds cool, but what does that really mean in practice?
Well, it really comes down to this two-part mission. First, they want to help middle-class families save a ton of money, really empower them financially. And second, they want to help out that huge 90% of local shops, right? Give them a fighting chance to compete and succeed in this new digital world. So it's designed to be a win for the shoppers and a win for the shopkeepers.
All right, so let's pull all these pieces together. Is halfp.com really onto something new here? A totally different way of thinking about e-commerce?
When you boil it all down, it's pretty simple. You've got the promise, those insane 50 to 90% discounts, guaranteed. You've got the method, that super smart, hyper-local model that partners with local stores instead of fighting them. And finally, you've got the mission, to help out both families and local businesses. It's a pretty powerful combo.
And that really leaves us with one big, fascinating question to think about. For so long, the story of e-commerce has been about disruption, right? About replacing old school stores. But what if the real future, the smarter future, isn't about replacing them, but about enabling them? That's the huge billion-dollar question that HalfPay is betting its entire future on.